Before we get started, gotta do a quick shill. Fracture Sounds recently released Emotive Woodwind Soloists, the third in their Soloists series that began with brass band and soft string soloists. If you're interested in all of these libraries together, you can currently pick them up at their introductory price as part of the Legato Soloists bundle. Now let's get on with the video. Hi, my name is Marcus and I'm here on behalf of Fracture Sounds to show you a major update to their brass band soloists and soft string soloists libraries. Many of you requested these and so here they are. There is now an Ensemble patch available in brass band soloists. It combines all 5 instruments available in the library into a simple, easy to play VST with many of the controls from the solo patches. So far I've been playing sustains with vibrato, there is also sustains without. You can extend the dynamic range using this slider in the bottom right of the interface, so for instance, if I bring my mod wheel, or CC1, down to 0, you will hear nothing. And you can affect how bright or dark the overall sound is using this colour control here. I'm going to set this to a custom MIDI CC. And as you might expect, there are also the 3 short articulations from the main library available in the Ensemble patch, starting with the shortest, which is staccato. Shorts are always good for showing off the microphone positions, so for anyone who hasn't seen the walkthrough of the main library yet, we can get some really dry sounds by just soloing the close mics. You can introduce a bit more of the room in the studio with the mid mics, if I solo them up like that. Or a more distant sound with the far mics. As with all Fracture Sounds libraries with access to the mics, you can easily transition through the different positions using this handy perspective slider which you've seen me using. I can also set this to a custom CC by right-clicking on it, learn MIDI CC automation and moving the fader in question, and then I can actually move it whilst I play. Now, over in the instrument placement panel, you'll see we have in situ mode, which is what I've been using so far. This mode features each instrument in its usual position in a typical brass band ensemble, which makes it ideal for achieving a natural, wide sound. The custom position button isn't included in this patch, which kind of makes sense if you get a bit complicated, but we still have access to the center stereo mode, which places all of the instruments in the middle of the stereo field. Of course, this won't sound quite as natural with an ensemble, as it kind of means you've got all the players sat in the same seat, but this could be useful for a sort of contemporary studio sound, maybe for use in pop or funk, for example. And of course, we've still got plenty of options for applying reverb within the library itself. There are 4 options that we can find under these cogwheels here: room, hall, shimmer, and convolution. If I choose convolution, then we've got several choices of placing the library in, say, a bigger concert hall. Bring the reverb up a little bit. Going to set this back to default and put us in situ mode to show you the performance shorts articulation. This is great for quickly using all 3 short articulations without key switches. Usually with short articulations, it's velocity, or how hard you hit the keyboard, which controls the dynamics. But in this case, velocity actually controls the length of the notes, with light playing activating staccatos and heavier handiwork activating the longer tenutos. The dynamics, as with the sustains, are then controlled by the mod wheel or CC1. Going to bring down dynamic range. So that's a quick overview of the Brass Band Soloists Ensemble patch, and if you want to see the full library walkthrough, it's linked above now on screen and in the description below. Let's move on to soft string soloists. This is the Ensemble patch in soft string soloists, where we're hearing a combination of solo cello, viola and violin. This library is designed to work in a neoclassical Scandi kind of style, perfect for emotive and dramatic scoring, which you can really get a sense of here with the sustained articulation. If you want an even more fragile sound, you can use the next articulation, harmonics. And if you want to bring this up to a more ambient level, I would personally suggest the shimmer reverb. With the sustains slow articulation, there is a slower attack and longer release performed by the player. And like with the ensemble in brass band soloists, we can affect the brightness or darkness of the overall sound using the colour control. Next up are the gestures, which are expressive short notes. Again, this is a good opportunity to show the variety of sound this library can create using the microphone positions alone, so I will zero the reverb and use this handy perspective slider to show you the close mics with the gesture articulation still. Then the mid mics, giving us slightly more of the room. And finally, the more ambient far mics. As with the main library, our final articulations are 2 lengths of swells. All of the swells are time controlled, meaning that if you hold down the notes long enough, you will hear the full swell, but if you lift off before the swell has reached its climax, you can cut it short should you need to. Here's how they sound. Both of these ensemble patches are a great way of combining all of the samples in the solo libraries together, either to compose with or as a tool for quick sketching before splitting them out into separate instruments. So for example, I'm going to put this on standard sustain and bring the latency down to 0 milliseconds to make it nice and easy to play something in. I'll then copy the MIDI out into the 3 separate solo instruments and then choose the notes that I want to use for each one. Going to quantize this so we can keep it all nice and neatly to the grid. The one exception being perhaps this little flourish there, which I'm going to just move everything over to the right a little bit because I tend to play instinctively ahead of the beat. Quantize this to 1/16. I'm going to make this 32th. I might just go back through and play in some dynamics. And now I'm going to copy that MIDI region up into all 3 soloist instruments and then delete the notes as necessary, basically. So we'll start with the cello, and of course instinctively, rather than lifting off, I sort of held notes through to try and make it sound smoother, but obviously I've now shot myself in the foot a little bit there because it's now made it a little bit more complicated than it needs to be. Viola, which is now playing obviously one note above that, so get rid of that bass line, and then finally hopefully this should be a little bit simpler, the violin part is the topmost at all times. So let's just quickly delete everything else. So with all of these soloists in smart legato mode, I have set the latency to 300 milliseconds. This gives us the most realism, but it is quite a long delay. So to compensate for this in Logic, I will set the track delay of all 3 instruments to negative 300 milliseconds, and then make sure that I have delay CC data turned on as well, which means that the dynamics I played in will also get moved by 300 milliseconds along with the notes. So hopefully now I'm going to play this all back and it's going to be in time with the metronome and sound very realistic. And in the space of only a few minutes, more or less, I managed to translate something from the ensemble patch to 3 soloists relatively quickly. Definitely a bit of finessing that needs to be done, but I think it sounds rather nice. I could even layer it with the ensemble patch. Let's see how that sounds. Or, even more interestingly, what if I was to put the ensemble patch on harmonics? How does that sound? Not too bad. I'm going to bring this note in the violin down in velocity, which will make it a portamento just for a little bit of extra added tearjerk emotion. How does that sound? Stupendous. Okay, now let's have a listen to that again. Nice. Using the ensemble patch, you've now got a kind of all-in-one tool for sketching an idea out and then translating that into 3 individual parts, which then sound like a convincing string trio. And I have to say, personally, I don't think it sounds too bad, considering how quickly I knocked that together, although admittedly, the string writing is not the best you've ever heard. And that's it. That is the ensemble update for both brass band and soft string soloists. Now, Fracture Sounds have seen some requests for pizzicato and staccato articulations for the strings. These are currently in development and will be provided in a future update, as well as an ensemble patch for emotive woodwind soloists. So to make sure that you don't miss those, you'll want to be subscribed to the Fracture Sounds YouTube channel and the newsletter, linked in the description. Otherwise, leave us a like if you enjoy having up-to-date sample libraries. I know I do. Comment letting us know how much exactly, and I will see you when I see you. Goodbye.